evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbach, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Matthew Kane. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Queensland and RSL Victoria who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the Australian War Memorial. I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Alfred George Witt. Born in Pinjarra in the Peel region of Western Australia on Anzac Day, the 25th of April 1925, Alfred George Witt was the third son of Frederick and Ella Witt. After completing his schooling, Witt was employed as a truck driver at the Nestlé milk factory. After enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force in January 1945, Witt was posted to the 1st Training Battalion, Royal Australian Engineers, at the large Australian Army training base at Kapooka in New South Wales. In the afternoon of the 21st of May 1945, tragedy struck. During a routine demolition training exercise on the preparation of hand charges, two groups were crowded in a dugout. One consisted of 22 trainees and 2 instructors, and the other of 3 men and their instructor. Inside the dugout, 110 pounds of explosives were stored for the day's training. In circumstances that remain unknown to this day, the explosives ignited, and in the explosion, 24 men were killed instantly. 2 died of injuries shortly after, and 2 more were severely injured. Alfred Witt was one of those killed in the accident. He was 20 years old. A mass funeral was held for the men in Wagga Wagga 3 days later, and thousands of people lined the route of the funeral parade. The 26 flag-draped coffins were carried on 4 army trucks. The cortege included over 100 military vehicles carrying members of the Army and the Royal Australian Air Force. The dead were buried in the Wagga Wagga War Cemetery. For many years after his death, Witt's family posted notices in memory in the West Australian newspaper. One from his mother and father read, "Short and sudden was the call, his death a shock to us all. 'Tis sad but true, we wonder why. The best are always the first to die." Today we remember and pay tribute to Sapper George Alfred Witt. His name is listed here on the Roll of Honour on my left among 40,000 Australians who died while serving in Second World War. This is one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper Alfred George Witt, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.